I was looking at spending a lot of years in prison. I was facing a lot of more felony charges. I had already been a habitual felon. I was on bond and violated my bond again, and was looking at some mandatory prison time. I was tired. I was tired of hiding. I was tired of running. I was tired of lying. I was tired of cheating the system. I was tired of all of it.
My name is Travis Brady, and I'm a branding mentor and sales story strategist. I hope you see me more of a guide than a host as I share the stories behind the brands, so you can take these stories, experiences, principles, and teachings and use them to share your story with the world. Welcome back to the story behind the brand. I got an incredible guest here today with an incredible story. If you haven't watched his 2-part documentary, make sure you watch that. Come back to this conversation after. We got Damon Nichols, speaker, real estate entrepreneur, transformational leader, and the creator of the Misfit Millionaire. Has an incredible story. Has spoken on a lot of our stages, so I'm really excited to get into a good conversation with him today about everything. So good to have you on the podcast.
That's good to be here, man.
Yeah, I like your background. Where's that at? Is that a real background?
Yeah, these are paintings that I've picked up from Robinson Farrell. He did this for me last year, and he did this one for me earlier this year. Well, not specifically. He did them. I like the lion because it kind of represents everything that I'm about. But I really like this other one too. So yeah, it's my backdrop. Artists, so I support, and it's what it's all about.
Yeah, nice. It looks really good. Yeah, I think you should always have a cool backdrop. For those who don't know, Damon has an incredible story. Been arrested over 30 times, in and out of prison, on and off drugs, recreates his life, transforms it, is doing crazy good in the world of real estate, starting groups. What do you want to tell people that haven't watched the documentary? What do you want to share them about your journey up to this point in time?
Well, I just want to let people know that no matter where they're at in their life, they can have whatever they want. You just gotta develop that mindset. And for me, it was just rewriting my story, and I had to reinvent myself a few different times, and I'm even right now still in the process of reinventing myself again and going back to some of the roots that the music roots, and now I'm coming back to that and trying to take what was a dream of mine for many years that I kind of put on the back shelf and bring it to life, and I'm realizing that you have to create the life that you want.
Mm-hmm. You've been through, whenever I share your story about being arrested 30 times, the first response is, how does someone get arrested 30 times and not still end up in jail?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started out very young, and I started getting arrested for stupid things, and I'd get out, I'd get put on probation, I'd violate my probation, and coming from a small town, I was a troublemaker, and I got thrown in jail a lot for things that were stupid. I would go for a day, and there was times where I got arrested, they held me there and then let me out the next day. No charges, no court appearances, no anything. And then there was times where I was on a case and was on probation and would violate that probation over and over and over again. And just, got picked up. And then, obviously in '89, I was already on probation, had been in and out, just kind of, they knew me as a knucklehead, and I didn't, for a long time. I didn't have a driver's license. I drive, and every time I get pulled over, it was like I'm going to jail because I knew. And half the time I had drugs on me, and so it's just kind of this whole for several years there. I was just everywhere I went, it was just trouble, And then I ended up going to prison. So I got arrested a lot from the time I was probably 16 till maybe 22 years old, 21 when I went to prison. But then after that, there was a few other times after that, and it was just like bond violations, and but it can happen, I mean, I know other people that I know that are the same thing. It's like they're in and out of jail all the time. So that was a track record for me for a lot of years, especially in my younger years when I was when I drank a lot and did all of the other drugs. So it was just kind of the whole combination of being stupid.
Now the story comes full circle. Now you're going in the prisons, you're giving
Yep.
speeches and presentations. What's your main message that you give to those guys when you go into there, and how do they receive it? How has it been? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. I know we've had conversations about those presentations. Give us a little bit of insight about that journey that you've been on.
Yeah, so it's crazy because I just got an email today from the facilitator, and it was a list of all of the letters from the last group of guys that I went and talked to, and they're all of their testimonials. They all wrote me letters, and I'm seeing what an impact I'm making on these guys' lives, and really my whole message is, you've labeled yourself as this person, and you've been this person. You've carried whatever baggage around with you your entire life, and you let it define who you are. And my message is, leave that at the door. When you leave, realize that your debt to society is paid. When you walk out that door, you no longer have to carry that identity. Change the people you hang around with. Change the way you talk. Change the way
Mhm.
you talk to yourself, about
Yeah.
yourself. Change all of that, and anything is possible. So it's really, a lot of mindset, and it really comes down to that deep work, and redefining who you are, and realizing that, all of those things that happen to you that put you in there, because nobody just ends up in prison. It's usually, a long line of things that have happened,
Mhm.
and it comes from, addiction, which came from, troubles in the home. Mom wasn't there, dad wasn't there. There was some form of abuse, some form of abandonment, any of that stuff. So to be able to deal with that, and work through that, to become okay with yourself. That's the main message.
The self-talk is really hard. Even I catch myself just being so mean to myself, we get so afraid of what the haters say or think, when in reality, we can be our biggest hater. What is your message, or what is that thing that you had to do with that self-talk? Where did you first interrupt that, and how do you like really change that dialogue that's happening inside of our head?
That's an ongoing thing. Really, it's just about really paying attention to the words that come out of your mouth, because words define so much. And when you say those things, if you make a mistake and you say, even under your breath, stupid or dumb or idiot, or like, you are really defining yourself, and you are, that's a low level vibrational thing, and just really being conscious of the words you say in your language. And really, in the last year, I've really been, getting deep into that, and trying to really be conscious of everything I say. And what's crazy is none of that stuff's really taught to us in school.
Yeah, you think about all the things that, successful people, carry with them, a great attitude about themselves. I mean, how little of it is actually taught in school, how to be an entrepreneur, how to sell, how to manage your finances. Like, there's so little things that they actually teach you in school that help you actually be successful.
Right.
It's kind of astonishing. So it really, to be successful, you really have to take it on your own. I really share the difference between a wild lion and a zoo lion. I don't know if you've heard me use this
I
analogy
have.
before.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's such a great analogy, and it just came to my mind because I saw the lion. But most people are taught to be zoo lions. You're
Hmm.
taught to live in this box. You're taught how to do enough to get fed, to work for the man. And then sooner or later you realize that all the dreams, the aspirations, the things that I carried with me in a kid require me to be a wild lion. And they've showed studies that it's not easy just to introduce a zoo animal to the wild. In a lot of cases, they don't know how to survive because they haven't learned how to survive. They've been handed food, in some cases their entire life. And also the opposite is true. You take these wild lions and you try to put them in a zoo, and it's like you can't take the wild out of them. And I relate this to, working for someone versus working on your own, and I feel like I was a hybrid. I felt like I was kind of trained to be both. And so even coming into entrepreneurism, there's a lot of things that I had to unlearn.
Mhm.
You found real estate to be your first path in really growing your life and as an entrepreneur. What were some of those things that you had to learn? What were those things that you had to unlearn? And what can you give for the people that may be addicted to things and they're trying to get out of that and create a new life? What advice would you give those people?
Well, my biggest thing is I had to unlearn my beliefs around money because, I come from a background where I was taught that you had to work really hard. And if you weren't, sweating and bleeding and out, trading your time for money, it wasn't well earned. It wasn't deserved. And so, I developed this belief and I didn't even know I had it. And the majority of Americans have the same belief around money that, it's hard to get. You have to work hard for it. And, you know, um, and so just like changing that was the probably one of the biggest things for me and realizing that I don't need to because we do everything going after the purpose is to go after the money. And when we change how we do business and it's not like I'm going to go over here to go after the money because we don't really want the money. We want what the money's going to get us.
Hmm.
And being able to say what skills do I have that's going to attract the money? What things do I need to put together that's going to attract the money or make the money want to come to my deals? So kind of developing that mindset was probably the first biggest thing and realizing, I grew up in a really low income area and around a lot of people that were poor, even the people that had money in our community, in comparison to like some of the people that I know now, it's still not very much money. I looked at them as people that had a lot of money, but just getting past that and realizing that there's, a whole different way out there, a different belief system. And there is a lot of money and it's readily available. It's just the people that I was around didn't have it. So I had to get myself around different people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hear it all the time. You're the average of the five people closest to you, but I feel like people still take that they take their environment for they're just so passive about it. They don't increase new social circles. They don't try to meet new people. They continue to accept the behaviors of some of their vibrating friends around them. What advice would you give for people trying to get into new social circles and to get around people that are going to help elevate them rather than pull them down?
Yeah, I mean that's such a game changer is to get around the right people. And it's hard though sometimes to cut ties with those people. And maybe you don't need to just cut ties with them. Maybe it's just trying to find the right people. For me, I had to sever everything because I
Yeah.
knew the people that were in my life they weren't going to help me. And one of the biggest things that even now, it's like, okay, are these people going to help me become a better version of myself so that, we can grow together? Are these people that do they what's their what is their 1 or 2 or 5 year plan look like. And it's pretty easy to see what people want to do. If they've got a lot of addictions and they're just doing the same thing, they're just out to feed some kind of an addiction. But if they have dreams and things that they want, those are the kind of people that I want to be around. People that are looking to do big things in life, you know?
Yeah, I think it's hard for most people because they go, well, they're nice to me or they've been a great friend to me, and I think the biggest problem is people start to justify it.
Yeah.
And I think you said it right. I don't think it's about like necessarily saying I'm done and through with you. I think it's about really increasing just new social circles. And I think we get held in, I call this identity prison. Identity prison is where you're around people all the time and they hold you to this person you've always been. Transformation isn't hard, it's hard for the people around you.
Yeah.
And when they don't allow you to change or they're very anti to you change and they might say stuff, oh, you think you're so tough going to the gym now, or look at you, Mr. Entrepreneur. They'll just make these subtle comments and jokes.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really grow an environment that's not fostering growth. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing. And I've even watched myself get stuck into certain social groups. And so really transformation is really hard to really transform who you are. They say less than 1% of people actually transform their social class. I don't know if you've heard this.
Oh yeah.
And they say half of those people that actually do it's because they marry into a class. It's not because they actually
Yeah.
changed it. So you're talking about a 0.5% of the population that actually makes a significant change in their wealth to actually change their social class, which is pretty crazy. So it's not for the faint of heart. And I think people just take it too casually. And I think the thing they take the most casually is being around new people. And it's easy to get connected, but there's less connection than ever before. And so I think that's the reason why you built the Misfit Millionaires. Tell us a little bit about that and what you hope people to really take away from that group.
So yeah, it's a group of people. I'm in a few different groups in a few different communities, and they're all about personal growth, and they share they share stories, they share success stories, and they reach out. Just like, today I had a guy reach out to me with some things that he's got going on, but developing these types of relationships and these circles, and you'll find you'll get in circles, and a year, 2 years go by, and you'll find that those people, you have seasons with people, and they
Hmm.
come and go. But just to be able to get in these things, I wanted to be able to provide something that had other business owners, people that have gone through failure and loss, and being able to make it on the other side, and they kept going, and because that's what this is about. We're all misfits, and I made a lot of mistakes, and even after I got clean and sober and was on my journey into real estate and was doing really well and being successful, I still made a lot of bad mistakes and bad choices. It's just they didn't have the same type of consequences. They were consequences that didn't involve me losing my freedom, for one,
Yeah.
or losing my sobriety, because all of the other choices have been like that. But, you know, so that's what the community's about. And I want to be able to, I have people that have built businesses from nothing, people that are very successful, that are willing to share how they did it. They're willing to share their tricks. They're willing to share, whatever. So that's what I want, is a place for people to be able to get answers and be able to connect with other people.
Yeah, I love that. I think if you're listening to this right now, I think you should do two things. One, you should be a part of a new community, and you should create your own community. I think those are two important pieces with growing your brand and growing your business. And you've
Mhm.
done those very well. We met through Red Suit Realtor that I've had here on the podcast a few times. And yeah, you find those new social circles and you'll get connected with new people. didn't even know. And so I'm such a believer in getting connected to new communities. And I think people take that so casually. They
Yeah.
took it so casually, and they everyone says, yeah, I should do that. But how many people like actually do that? Actually take the time to go seek out, actually take the time to go invest. Right after this, we're gonna shoot some videos, and then we're gonna go downtown Scottsdale. We got invited to this party, me and Flory, and so we're gonna head down there. So I'm excited for that. But
Heck yeah.
switching gears a little bit, I admire you and your wife have a great relationship. If you've watched the documentary, it was the complete opposite at that one point in time, even to the point where you didn't know you were going to still be married. How did it get so bad? What were the key things that allowed it to be so bad? And why is it so good now? And what has that been able to do for you in your business and in your life?
All right. Well, I will start out with the bad because I know what was going on there. We met in some, we met, we didn't get together. We met, obviously, we were in a treatment center. We became friends, but we got together, after the program, and neither one of us we'd had all of this information, about how to, stay clean, stay sober, and all this, but really hadn't done the work. And both of us were still carrying around a lot of baggage and a lot of stuff that defined us as individuals. And I see this with so many different relationships where, you're still, you seek approval from somebody else, and I did that a lot with her, and I believe she did with me because I never felt good enough as I was younger. She didn't either. Obviously she came from a background where she didn't feel wanted. She didn't feel, so when you have those, and you have two people that come together and they have those things, even when you get sober and you get clean, if you don't work on that stuff. And I think that's what happened is we worked so much on it in the treatment center because we were there for, a couple of years of like intense treatment, like every day just hammered into you. And when you have that and you finally get away from that and you're like, man, like I'm all therapied out.
Right.
And so like I started going through life and I didn't continue to work on myself. I had enough of the therapy. I thought I was good.
Sure.
And before I knew it, the old crept back in. And it's same for both of us. And and we got in this circle, and I see it with so many men and women where, the woman wants something and the guy just can't provide it at the time because maybe he doesn't feel good enough about himself. She gets mad at him. He retreats, and then the cycle just continues to get worse and worse. And then you grow apart, and then there becomes animosity. And then on top of that, with my accident and all of that, and my kids, and all of the stuff that came from that, because we have a little bit different dynamic than a lot of people. There was some elements in there of that would made it really hard. But bottom line is we quit working on ourselves, or we never really did the deep work on ourselves.
Mhm.
And it came to a point where it blew up. We both went back deep into addiction.
Mhm.
But
I
once,
have a question for you. What do you a lot of these rehabs? I mean, they don't seem like they're very successful. Why is that? What would you change
well,
about these facilities to make them be more successful? Or do you think it has really nothing with the facility and just the fact that transformation is hard, like we talked about?
Well, it comes down to most people are sentenced there. They go there because they have to. For me, it
Mm,
was an alternative to prison, and I went because I had to. Sure, you're forced to learn things. And this is the same thing I talked about to these guys that are coming out of prison or going through a halfway house or whatever. Like, you have all of these requirements that you have to meet. AA, NA, relapse prevention, COG, just all of the different types of classes and courses and whatever they require from you. And you just go through it to check off a box, but you're never really working on yourself. But whenever you shift that, because me come to the point where like I'm gonna lose everything I had with her, with my family, with everything. And I did not, I didn't, I wasn't, I was done starting over. I'd started over too many times. And whenever I shifted that, like, I want to do this for myself because I want the relationship better. I never had that viewpoint. It was always, I'll go this because she wants me to, or I'll do, and so many people do that to try to appease their others, to check a box. And whenever you get out of that, I'm not going to check a box. I'm going to do this because I want to be better. I want to grow and I want to make my relationship better. So when I looked at that way and I changed my mindset, I started going to marriage counseling because I wanted to have a good marriage. I took some child parenting classes because I wanted to be a better parent
Mm-hmm.
instead of she told me or hounded me. Because that's the thing is a lot of people will hound somebody to go get therapy, or they'll
Mm-hmm.
and until somebody's ready and says, you know what, I want a better life, then it's not going to happen.
I feel like unfortunately you have to get to this really painful spot where changing is easier than staying the same. Do you believe that? Do you believe
Oh,
people have to get
100%.
to that place? I mean,
Yep.
why can't we just be inspired and do that? You know what I
the
mean? Why do
the
we have to?
pain, the pain is not bad enough. My friend and mentor Nick, he talks about a story about the dog that's laying there, howling every day when he's walked by, and he hears this dog howling and just whining. He's like, asked the guy, Mister, why is he whining? Why's your dog sitting there whining? Well, it's sitting on a nail. Well, doesn't he move? Well, I guess it don't hurt bad enough. So and that's just it. That's why we do everything. The pain isn't bad enough to make us want to change, and that's what it sometimes it takes is, you know, some major pain
Was
and
it
fear.
was it Celeste and not having Celeste that truly like because that was like really the turning point in your story? It sounds like where you really pulled out of it is yeah, you'd done some things. There'd been some mistrust. She was ready to be done. You know, what was that the final catalyst in your mind that finally got everything to come together, or was it a combination of things?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. I was looking at spending a lot of years in prison. I was facing a lot of more felony charges. I had already been habitual felon. I was on bond and violated my bond again, and was looking at some mandatory prison time. And I was tired. I was tired of hiding. I was tired of running. I was tired of lying. I was tired of cheating the system. I was tired of all of it. And I just got to the point where, like, how much more running am I going to do? Because that's all it is. Every time you kick the can down the road, or you hide, or you run, or you lie, or you whatever,
Hmm.
I've just like, I'm done. I can't. I just came to the point where I can't live my life like this anymore, and I want to be better.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand to look in the mirror. And so I was like, what do I got to do? What do I
Yeah.
got to do to become the man that she wants to be with?
Yeah, you talk about hating yourself. Is you're starting to make the transformation? At what point was it? I'm not hating myself, but I'm kind of starting to like myself now. Like, what was that turning point, and what was that? What was the habit that led to that? What do you think's the most important habit with really getting past that hating yourself type of thing?
So as I started cutting out the bad things in my life, because I was really overweight, I was unhealthy, my skin looked horrible. You could just tell I was in a bad place. And
Hmm.
when I started cleaning up I started treating people different. For one, I a big part of it was going and volunteering at the homeless shelter. Like, that was a huge change for me because I
Yeah.
was homeless living in my truck, but I also at the same time I was like, I want to go, how can I give back? I don't have anything to give, but what can I do? So from being at my low point to be able to go and still donate my time, what little bit I had, they give me a sense right there. That kind of started it, but then starting to take the bad habits out of my life. Like I had already quit the meth, I'd quit all of that stuff, but really like I want to cut this out of my life today. And I started taking better care of myself. I started losing weight, and I started really watching how I talked and responded, and really paid attention to what are her needs. So that's the biggest thing, and that's what I work on with my son, is just like, what are their needs, or what are they trying to tell me in this? Because we all go at whatever situation knowing what we want and what we need, but when you look at the other person, what do they need out of this? So
Yeah.
like all of that stuff really kind of, it started hitting at the same time. And I guess, never was there a point in my life where I was, I think, even ready to hear the information that I did. Because once I got to a point in my life where I was ready to change, like it was almost became like drinking from a fire hose with all of the information. Everything came to me because I was open to it.
Mhm.
Alignment, like again, like what I was talking about the last time we were there, is alignment versus effort, and aligning myself with who I wanted to be.
It's it sounds Miss America-ish, when you start talking about, childhood trauma and all these things, and I'm stuck repeating the same patterns because of things I went through when I was younger. When you first heard this stuff, how did you respond to that, or were you open to that? Because I feel like it's a lot more, it's just a different generation these days, and my
Yeah.
dad's generation, he's 68, that there's not really, you don't talk about your feelings, you push your feelings down.
Yeah.
In this generation, it's like, oh, you have feelings? That's weird because now we're just medicating every people, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just curious about that introduction to that world, because it is a significant part, in my opinion, to changing who you are, is really understanding how did you become who you were, and you start looking at how were you raised, what was your mom's traumas, your dad's traumas. And one of my coaches even said, go back further, go
Yeah.
back to your lineage. And he gave me this assignment where he wanted me to write down, write a letter to my yeah, write a letter to my family early on. And I was like, this is such a weird assignment. Like, but I got out a pen and paper, and as soon as like a minute into it, I just dropped the notebook and I started crying because I realized that
Hmm.
I totally forgot that my grandpa actually was abandoned by his mom and dad, and he had to survive on his own for 4 months, still in food. And I was just thinking, like, where does this abandonment feeling come from? Why do I have this abandonment feeling? I've never been abandoned by my parents, but my grandpa was abandoned. And
Yeah.
so this energy I felt like may have been coming from that. So just awakening to that idea, I think really helped me and healed a part of that, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I mean,
what was your journey in healing that trauma? What did that look like for you?
so yeah, I mean, early on, in the 80s and 90s, when I was, like in and out of a lot of those different places and rehabs and treatment centers, and prisons and all of that, it was all that it was different. You had psychiatrists and shrinks and psychologists and stuff. And I think they were going about things a lot different than they are now.
Mhm.
And for one, I didn't, as I was young when I was younger, I got kind of forced into that. So then I became really rebellious, and I'm like, I don't want these stupid shrinks and psychology. I'm not going to let them get in my head. And I used to mess with them, and
Mhm.
but now the psychology, now that they're starting to realize the psychology behind what makes people do what they do,
Mhm.
it was either maybe wasn't as well known or maybe it was suppressed. But now that, especially probably within the last 20 years or even 15 years, I think things have changed so much.
Mhm.
And the stuff that wasn't talked about before is now starting to come more to the surface. And I don't know. I guess once I started seeing that, because I never realized, all of that stuff. Like I grew up with, in this household, and I thought so much of that stuff was normal. But then, I look at my mom's side of her family, and I look at that, how all of that plays out, like how my grandpa was born with no hand, and I'm sure like he dealt with that, and it probably, you know, he started drinking at an early age, and then he met this woman, was my grandma. They got together very young, both majorly addicted to alcohol. They both died from alcoholism at very young age, and then and didn't really know their parents, but I mean what they came from, and they were like all immigrants and just like the whole lineage of stuff. And not until like recently has any of that stuff even been talked about. Like like we're in a generation now where this stuff is all like starting to come out, and it's been very fairly recently. But I think with the tools though now, I think there's really no excuse. I think now people have the tools, and it's so widely known to be able to say, you know what, I don't have to live like this. I don't have to carry this. And if you can find the right people, the right community, the right thing. I mean, there's things that I learned this from Michael Burnoff. When you start labeling things, actions, what you do, and you start really defining these things, you can change that stuff overnight. And that stuff wasn't, these are guys that have just kind of started bringing this stuff in probably within the last, few years.
Mhm.
But anyway, kind of went off on a tangent, but knowing like this, so much of the stuff is become to the surface to where we know about it, and awareness. I guess that's probably the biggest thing is awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's social media, it opens up everything and we get so much more access to so much more information, especially AI. It's literally getting insane. And you're still going to have people that don't take advantage of it too,
Right.
and the real transformation I believe is more in your body than it is in your mind. And I think that's the biggest mistake that we all make, including myself. We think that just because we know it, that we're able to do it, or if we're in a situation, we can perform. And the truth of it is, you have to get the body to reset. There was this needle, or not needle, there was this pin in my laptop book, and I was reaching in there to grab my mouse, and I freaking reached in and cornered the pin and like just dug it into my finger, and it freaking hurt. Because you have all these nerve endings. And I kid you not, every time I reach into that book, I get that sensation of the needle on my finger. And you ever got a needle so sharp it sends all the way up your arm into your
Mhm.
head, and then your head zings? I kid you not. Every time I reach into that, I get that feeling. And I think that same exact thing happens in life. We're out in life, we get hurt, and then we're in a similar situation, and that same feeling comes up for us, and it makes the body respond. So when I reach in there, I'm not as aggressive as I once was, but each time I do it, I notice that I don't feel quite the zing that I used to. And I think
Yeah.
that it's not just resetting your mind, it's resetting your body. And I think that's where
Mhm.
people make the mistake is they don't understand the importance of going to these events, doing the meditations, doing the dynamic meditations, doing the affirmations, writing the stuff down, being in the environment. All these things program that central nervous system to a new life. It's not just knowing something, it's being able to do it, but a part of that's part of your being. So that's really what I've noticed throughout the years. And that's something you speak about a lot through the process.
Yeah. Well, our bodies and our mind is just almost like a screen. If you leave it on too long, it gets an image gets burned in there, and until you find a way to replace that image, you're going to get up. You're going to go through life. You're going to get up every morning, the same cycle. You want to change, but then something's going to happen. It's going to instantly remind you this didn't work the way it was. There's that image that's burned in there, and then you get right back into that rut, and you complete that same cycle over and over again. And it's the fear of this failed one time and it's going
Mm.
to fail again, or this didn't work. And getting past that. And the crazy thing is our mind does not know the difference. Our subconscious mind don't know the difference. When you sit there and you think about something, like I can think about like when I'm getting into my car to go race, and I feel the adrenaline, the excitement. I'm not even there, but I feel it. I feel my heart race because your mind
Mm.
doesn't know.
Yeah.
It's sending signals to your body like you're doing it.
Yeah.
And and it's the same thing with everything. You go to get in the ring with somebody. You feel that adrenaline because you don't know the difference. You can sit here in the dark and get those adrenaline rushes because your body, your mind thinks that you're doing that. Same thing with playing music. I can feel like I'm on stage. I can feel that excitement and that vibration, and you just you know we don't know the difference. So when you
Mm.
start thinking about this is going to happen this way, you're basically making it happen,
Mhm.
and you're
Yep.
you're creating that loop. You're creating that reel. You're creating that same picture over and over and over again. That burned in image that's it's still there. It doesn't know the difference. You turn the screen on. Oh, there it is.
Tell us, man, we could talk about so many different things, and you have so many crazy stories associated with your documentary. We were driving, and you were even sharing a piece of it at the very beginning. But for sake of time, tell us about the book. I see it there to your left. What's the breakout about? What can people walk away with after reading that book?
So it was a book that I wrote. It was fairly simple, and it was just kind of the steps that I took of going through. It was a little bit about my past life and kind of some of the things that I went through and had to overcome. Obviously, I talk a little bit about the accident, and having to get through that, and raising my boys. And going through the different prisons and treatment centers and all of that to finally going through my last bit of court in 2014 and having to deal with all of that to make that big change, and kind of the steps that I took to go from being homeless, living in my truck, to starting my own business and getting into real estate and becoming successful in real estate and building my business in storage. So kind of the a quick brush over of how I went through all of that. But I'm also in the process of writing a second book now, and it kind of
Nice.
goes deeper into everything that I've done from that point. Really doesn't really talk anything about the backstory but just kind of some of the things that I did and some of the people that influenced me. I think that was huge because I got introduced to different people along the way, and when I followed them and listened to them, there was certain people that really I heard things from people, and I was like, wow, this really makes sense, and it may have been something that I've known all my life or heard, but when I heard it from somebody different, it just it set different, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as you said that, I'm even thinking just all the small things that have happened over the years. Just, sometimes you just need to hear. Yeah, it's just like the right person at the right time just says something that just kind of brings it all together. They say as a speaker, you should never get too excited when someone comes up to you after a presentation and says you changed my life. Really, they say it takes 6 to 7 times of hearing something before you actually like get it through your thick skull. And so they say sometimes you just said it in a way the seventh time
Yep.
that got everyone to
Yep.
actually think. But they said the goal in your presentation is to repeat messages 6 to 7 times so you create more of those epiphanies in the audience after.
Yeah.
And Damon has an incredible story. He's a great speaker. Your story's insane. It's really cool to see you, take that story and utilize it and have a lesson from it. How can people follow you or be a part of your journey moving forward?
So, for one, the misfitmillionaires.org. That's my main group. You can go to damonnichols.com, Damon R. Nichols Instagram, or Damon Nichols Breakout Blueprint on Facebook. But probably the best way is to look into joining the community if you want access to. I have a lot of stuff in there, and there's if you're looking to get into real estate, tax liens, growing your own business, that's a really good place to be. So
Nice. Okay, I know that you're listening right now. You know someone that could really benefit. I know that you know someone that's maybe battled drugs or addiction. This would be a really great message. Send it, copy the link, send it to someone. Say, hey, I've been thinking about you. Help me share this podcast. That's all I ask through the process. I think Damon can reach a lot of people. So send that link over to him. Thanks for joining today. Be inspired in what you're doing. Remember, you have a story that can transform the world, and we'll talk here soon. Good talk.
Hey, you know you have a story to share with the world, which means you need to get on more life stages. Go to benextgen.com/speak. Again, benextgen.com/speak. Or you could just click the link in the description. Fill out an application. Our team will reach out to you and show you how our speaker partnership works. Get on a stage, get video, blow up your brand, blow up your business. Let's go.